In this video assignment, I'm going to discuss the legal implications of Brexit. Britain voted to leave the EU due to two main issues, the economics and immigration. Many British people believed that the economic benefit of being a member of the EU, such as free trade and movement of people, was no longer sufficient to justify the £350 million a week they had to supply the EU with for these benefits. The European Union is an economic and political partnership. There are currently 28 member states. It began after the Second World War and has now grown into a single market allowing the free movement of goods, people and capital. It has its own parliament, central bank, and the euro currency is currently used by 19 countries, while some members, including Britain, opted to use their own one. More than 30 million people voted in the referendum in June 2016. This was a turnout of 71.8%. The Leave Party won 52 to 48. On the 29th of March 2017, the UK government served a formal notice under Article 50 of the Treaty of the European Union to terminate its membership for the EU. This starts a 2-year notice period, which has grown into the term Brexit. This will occur in March 2019. The votes defied expectations and rocked the global market as the British pound fell to an all-time low. The Prime Minister David Cameron stepped down as he was a political leader for the Stay Party, and the Home Secretary Theresa May replaced him as leader of the Conservative Party as the Prime Minister. The UK and EU have provisionally agreed on the 3 divorce issues, on how much the UK owes the EU, what happens to the Northern Ireland border, and what happens to UK citizens who are living elsewhere across the EU. Talks are now moving on to further relations after agreement was reached on the 21-month transition period with a smooth and fast Brexit. The UK and EU will seek to negotiate terms of exit and their further trading relationships. The government has indicated its aim to phase, process and implementation of such new arrangements. Some of the immediate challenges for business will arise the impact of Brexit on the free movement of goods, services and people, as workers and many other areas affected by the single market. The legal and business impact of Brexit is incalculable, as businesses who are currently active across the UK and who expand themselves to a European market will no longer be aware on whether they will have to pay tariffs or there will be implementations of fees on top of what they already pay. Brexit will depend on the strategy with the EU, and Brexit will depend on which strategy the EU and UK decide to move forward with. The Norwegian model, which would see the UK leave the EU but allow the free movement of goods, capital and people. The Swiss model, which would see the EU negotiating a series of bilateral agreements with securing of some single market access. So some benefits of being in the EU they will still achieve, which will implement businesses and laws and tariffs and stuff like that on how they will be able to still act as an active member but not be an active member. Or the total exit from the EU, which has been often referred to as hard Brexit. This will involve negotiating new trade agreements between the EU and UK and could implement tariffs and taxes being put on companies. UK companies operating across the EU would still be forced to comply with EU standards, even though they may no longer be members of the European Union. They will have to conform to taxes and will have to conform to certain levels standards if they are to continue to exist and provide services across the EU. Post-Brexit, there will almost certainly be some editing to the UK's laws for corporate operations, as they will remove many EU legislations as there is no longer a third-party implementation to keep these laws. So the UK has implemented certain EU laws, mainly derivatives which aren't really optional, via primary legislation, and they continue to be part of British law, unless they amend or appeal. Other EU laws and general regulations will remain without need for implementation, which means these laws would fall away once the UK withdraws from the EU, unless they are then adapted into UK law. Post-Brexit EU may be faced with a harsh prospect that their court judgments and their legal findings and what actually happens in their court system might not be implemented in the same way it would have been before across the other members of the EU, as they have their own court system, their own judicial higher system, and now Britain's won't be as effective on theirs. And businesses must now prepare themselves for lengthy disputes with companies, with customers, as to whether they are continuing, or how they're going to operate with out British free trade, because a lot of companies who locate in the European Union locate to trade primarily with Britain, but may choose to locate in somewhere like Ireland, which is corporation tax of 12.5 because it's lower than what it is in England. But now that England aren't in the EU, they don't have to comply with kind of fairness across the EU, so they can lower their own interest rates and their own corporation tax, which could bring the global national companies from countries such as Ireland and Poland and make them migrate straight to the UK, which will leave the Irish market and all European markets in disarray and in tatters. So the EU has influenced many areas of the UK's tax system, and in some cases been through EU legislation that's applied directly to the UK. So this is saying the UK's VAT, they can lower their VAT, or they can affect, so they can then lower their corporation tax and lower all these different things to entice other companies to move to England and to operate solely in England. So basically, Brexit is going to either stay the same, but just without England being in the EU, or it is going to completely change the face of the global market and the global operating system and how companies choose where they are going to locate and what they're going to do. So as a result, the laws in Britain will be changed. The laws with the Irish dealings with Britain shouldn't be changed. Generally, after 1922, Ireland always have an agreement called the Coal Cattle Pact, which would always allow free trade between Ireland and England. But whether that will remain based on whose alliances Ireland show to is left to be seen. How England will prepare and will act post Brexit will be very interesting for everyone to watch and everyone to see. No one really knows what the effects of Brexit is going to be until England actually do leave. These are all just theories and other things that I found online that are just very interesting. But overall, I think England's system of how they act and how they interact with other countries will change. Their taxes will change. Some laws might change. EU directives and legislations won't be applied, so there won't be any taxes or there won't be any free farming trade, so they'll have to all comply to all those standards themselves, and they'll set their own standards for their own companies, and this could be either very beneficial or very negative for the resulting EU countries. That is left to be seen. This was my video presentation on Brexit and its effects and its potential effects and its potential positive and negative effects. I hope you enjoyed.